you can and you're willing to support us, please do so. We'd really appreciate it. We're trying to expand the platform, trying to pay these bills. You can go to dgutspodcast.com. That's Don't Give Up the Ship apparel, some naval pride and heritage gear you'll actually wear in public. Get shirts, hoodies, shower shoes, drawstring bags, all kinds of cool stuff. Dope stickers like these. You can get logo stickers. We got the Enlisted Deviant stuff, all kinds of cool stuff. More to come. Working on lots of designs all the time. We also have the podcast challenge coin, just came out. I'm really proud of that. And then if you also are willing to and able to, please go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast. A lot of really cool benefits, tiers, all kinds of cool stuff to try to drive support for the financial side of the platform. There's demands on all of the things that I want to do to expand, cost money, all the services and subscriptions and all those things. And I am trying to turn this thing into a business and a job so that I can do that and devote all my time to providing more content, services, whatever I can do that helps you out. So if you're willing and able, please go to dgutspodcast.com. You can also go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast and become a member today. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Don't Give Up the Ship podcast, episode 117. Today I am talking to Submarine Supply Officer, aka CHOP. She's going to love the name of this episode. Just Lieutenant Alexis Travis. I think she's selected for 04 as well, but yeah, so she is affectionately known as @MilMama on the Run on TikTok and Instagram. I've had her stuff sent to me a million times, and so I was finally like, sorry, I really need to look into this. And I don't, like, if you listen to the podcast, I'm a big critic of the format of, like, the TikTok style of, like, video content, like Reels and all that stuff. Like, part of me just doesn't get it, but at the same time, like, it's popular for a reason, so I'm trying to understand. And she's one of the good ones out there that's doing really like just attacking topics that are really important, making a difference in a lot of great ways with the stuff she's shedding light on and talking about. And you'll see in the podcast, like, just an awesome leader, great officer, and a really cool human that I got the opportunity to talk to finally. And so I hope you all enjoy this. Check it out. The camera. I'm almost all the way awake. All right. So just like we talked about, we'll just share, like, your bio, background, as much detail as you want to, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So I'm Lieutenant Alexis Travis. I'm a Supply Corps officer commissioned through OCS in 2013. Did my first tour with NMCB3, so a little bit of expeditionary flavor, and then volunteered for Women in Subs. I was in like basically the third generation.
How did I not know you were a submariner?
That's why I was making Kings Bay Mafia jokes. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't even put that together in my, like, cancer-riddled brain. Like, I didn't even... God, I'm slow.
We're sneaky. Chops are sneaky because we hop in and we hop out.
Yeah, now I get to call you Chop, too. This is awesome. All right, sorry, go ahead.
So did a couple of years on USS Georgia.
Nice.
That was a time that existed in my life. And then I got picked up for instructor duty. So spent 3 years in Newport, Rhode Island, teaching other people how to be food service officers. So you can just blame several of those problems on me. I was all set to go to grad school through the Navy, and then got hit with a budget constraint. So got delayed a year and ended up on the Warrior Toughness Project, making the mobile application for that, which was a weird one-off of a year doing exactly what I wanted to do. It was amazing.
Yeah, that sounds like a really cool gig. I'm going to ask you about that later. But
yeah, then got to come to grad school, which is where I'm at now. So I'm a fully funded student. It's like sort of the officer version of Stay 21. So this is my duty. I go to Yale School of Management, where I'm getting my MBA with a heavy focus on organizational behavior and behavioral economics. So my curiosity is, how do we incentivize people to act the way we want them to in the military? Okay. That's kind of my ongoing interest in all my courses.
Yeah, that's a super interesting idea, because I mean, I'm obsessed with very similar things for very similar reasons with leadership stuff, where I just want to know, I was going to school for psychology. I'm taking a break right now because it's a long story, but I started having a meltdown basically because I'm I don't know how to civilian, and then I bit off more than I could chew, and But
Totally
same thing, like
understand.
I was studying leadership just like on my own. I got a degree on active duty and organizational leadership, but I was just reading leadership books because I'm a dork about it. And in the books, they kept referencing psychology. And so then I started going down that rabbit hole, and I went through therapy for over a year. And my therapist was like, "You'd be really good at this." And I was just like, "Really?" Like, and then I started looking into it, and I'm still like not exactly sure what I want to do with it. But I definitely want to go that route. I want to help veterans with it, and then obviously like build on this. But that's super interesting because like that's a lot of the stuff I want to talk to you about, because you're passionate about mental health, from what I gather from all your videos, and even like military sexual trauma stuff. Like my friend Amber is really big on that topic in particular and advocates for it a lot. And all of those things are these gigantic, like monolithic problems in the military that we never talk about leadership's role in it. And it drives me absolutely nuts, because I think that like, especially particularly mental health, it's like, for me, it's like if you were able to fix leadership, and like the definition of what fixed looks like is wildly varying, but like the way that I say it is like, if there was like a 20% objective quality increase in leadership across the board, like think about how many tertiary problems that would solve, just because of how
all of them.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's what I always say. I'm like, leadership's the solution to everything. Like if you had 20% more competent leaders, like suicide rates would plummet, acute mental health issues would plummet, military sexual trauma would plummet. And it's like, it wouldn't
retention
fix
rates,
it.
recruitment rates.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's not a vaccine, but it's like, it's, I mean, God, it would be so dramatic. It would be so dramatic.
Which is, kind of my ongoing thesis with my social media, which is I got started on during my year working with Warrior Toughness, mostly because
tell me that origin story. Yeah, like I'm really, how did you end up being Mill Mama on the Run? I'm very curious.
Man. First off, be really careful the username you pick if you ever decide to get into that, because you're stuck with it forever. So it was kind of twofold. When Reels started coming out on Instagram, which is like the short video format that for me feels like a throwback to Vine. But that makes me old. So
I barely know what Vine is. So talk about old.
Yeah.
Like I know of it.
Yeah, it was like super cool. I won't tell you what grade I was in, but and I was seeing all these people like make jokes, and I was like, I can make jokes. I'm funny. Yeah. And a bunch of the chiefs, so I was at basically an all khaki command, so it was like a handful of chiefs, a ton of civilians, and like 5 officers, not including our triad. And the chiefs took, I'm going to say, like a chiefly number of smoke breaks. And I don't smoke, but I was in Newport, Rhode Island, and CSS, which is the command I was at, has the best building.
Yeah, I've been there. When I was a CSA school instructor, they were our headquarters or whatever. Yep. And I came up there for the Senior Enlisted Academy, visited the CMC. His office is preposterous. Just the floor to ceiling windows and the view of Newport, with the like bridge, Bay or whatever. Yeah, it's insanity. Like
the fact that a staff corps like owns, well, I guess it's an HR billet now, but for a long time it was supply corps, like has that building with that office while the SWOs are like behind us. I can't imagine how mad that makes them, which is for me, it's like such a staff officer. It's great.
I'm surprised some line officer or like a flag officer hasn't come off the top rope and just told him to move to some basement somewhere, because that's been my experience.
Like, and it's so funny because like I would go into my CO's office to brief him on stuff, and I'd be like, look, I just need a minute. It's so gorgeous. But we have like picnic tables like right outside there. And so I was like, I want to hang out like in the sunshine and just do whatever. And so I started just like spending that time like looking at videos and then making them. And at some point it occurred to me that I could do that like about stuff that I cared about. And way back in the day in 2019, I helped rewrite an instruction to store expressed human breast milk on ships because there was like a loophole where people were like trying to do it, but it was really complicated. And as a food service officer, I was like, we can just fix this. We can just put it in
write
briefers.
Something. Yeah.
And I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and we got it written. And I was like, I should make a reel telling people about that because I feel like we made this change and nobody knows.
Nobody knows. 100%.
Yeah. Like, you were CSS, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I'm going to guess you never heard about it. Most of my food service students never heard about it.
Sure didn't.
So made a joke video about it, and I must have made a bunch of people really happy and a bunch of people really mad because it blew up. I got like, I think over 2 million hits on that video.
Who's gonna get mad about that?
So many people. Oh man, do not be a woman on the internet. It's my and I was like, actually, this is like really fun. Like I can make jokes and just do the things that I like to do, which is like lead and mentor people and tell them information that I think is important. And people find it. And right about then I was looking at, what did I want to focus on? What did I want to do while I was coming to graduate school? And I was like, if you want to work in like this space, you have to like already have a presence in the space. So I was like, well, what if I just like tried? What if I just, instead of making jokes, on my quote unquote smoke breaks, what if I actually did some reading and did some learning and tried this? And it's gotten bigger than I thought it would.
I was floored because like they sent me the thing and I was just like, I've seen some Navy recruiting accounts because they have a very they've become very like savvy with like social media, and there's a handful of them that have pretty large followings, but like I saw yours and it's enormous and I was like, oh my god, like
I have to couch that it is it looks a lot more impressive than it is.
Why do you say that?
I hit a bot nest like maybe 6 months ago, like to the tune that I got, like I ran down and got in touch with a physical human being at Meta. And I was like, I'm getting like 500 bot accounts a day.
Really? Yeah.
And I can't.
I've seen them follow me, but like, and I don't have, I mean, my Instagram's like a little over 2,000 or something, but I see certain bots follow, and it's like, you can tell like, or they like, as soon as I publish a podcast, I have some hashtags. I have kind of a lot because I studied like how to try to like leverage that stuff. Yeah. And I think it's changed since, so I probably don't need as many, but I think
Who knows? Yeah,
I know. I watch YouTube videos and do what they tell me to and hope it works, but it's they'll like, as soon as I publish a podcast, if it has certain tags in it, you'll get all these bot accounts like, DM me for a shout out or like whatever, and they're immediately
promoted on this military page.
Instantly commenting on it, and then I'll get some bots that like they like 20 of my old posts and then follow me. And I'm like, what? I don't understand the point or how it even works. So I know that some of my following is stuff like that. And I'm just like, I don't.
Yeah. A lot of my following is stuff like that. Just because they were coming in so fast, there was no way for me to get rid of them. And basically I asked Meta and they were like, there's really nothing we can do either. And I was like,
really?
Excellent. I love it.
What's the point? Like, I don't understand the bots. Like, you gain a bunch of followers and then what do they gain? Like,
no idea. I would love someone to explain that to me.
Me too. If anybody in the audience, I'm just like, I don't
wants to let me know.
Yeah,
one of my CT got laid off from a tech company.
One of my CT homies will probably DM me and tell me about it because every time I mention tech stuff. Yeah, every time I mention tech stuff, I'll get like a Reddit DM and it'll be like an explanation. And they'll be like, this is why. Like TikTok, they'll be like, this is why you shouldn't download TikTok.
Oh man, but, I can't wait for the CTs to just like pile on. Don't worry, I'm Mil Mama on the run on Reddit too, so y'all can just tag me and all the bad. And but you kind of hit on it, which is like I found very quickly that if you go to where people are, that's where you find community. That sounds really dumb and really obvious, but we see a lot of leaders, especially senior leaders, using a lot of traditional ways of trying to reach sailors, right? Like we just had a 60 Minutes piece, had the CNO on it. It was really cool. Everyone
no
should
one watches
Google
60
it.
Minutes. Like,
I have met like 3 people in the Navy who even knew that 60 Minutes was talking about us, because it's just, it's just not
it's
the
60
demographic.
minutes. It's like,
it's 60 Minutes. My grandma used to watch 60 Minutes.
Right.
My dad probably still watches 60 Minutes, but he's old. Love you.
Yeah.
And there, so we see stuff in print, stuff will come out in the New York Times or what, but like, how many of us have the New York Times? And so when I started making this and it started resonating with people, and then they would reach out, and I was like, oh, this is a channel where I can keep doing the things that made me want to become an officer, which is like, I want to help people. I want to mentor people. I want to be a voice for people. I loved being an instructor because it was like, I can make meaning out of all the things that I had struggled with. It was like, I can make meaning out of those. And I was like, oh, I can just keep doing that. And if I just do it into my iPhone camera, it'll help people. And it sort of spiraled out of control from there. About a year into it, we founded the Navy Digital Ambassadors. So that's a program under CHINFO. I've
never heard of that before.
I know, it's because we're new and we're like undercover trying to figure ourselves out.
Navy Digital Ambassadors. I'm writing it down.
There's like 5 or 6 of us. I'd have to go back and look at the group chat. And they want us to just tell our stories. They want to support us telling our stories, and they want us to, leverage social media and working with other people to spread the message of like the unfiltered, right? Like not the 60 Minutes, not the good lighting, professionally, whatever.
CHINFO. Like, I've been doing this for 7 years. I was on active duty. What the hell?
I'll send our director a message. But yeah, like that.
I've been out here in the cold. Come on, man.
You gotta see. You gotta be where they're looking. That's the trick.
Yeah, I guess.
And I got lucky because when they were looking to found the program, the person who works at CHINFO who was interested in it happened to follow me and put my Instagram in front of CHINFO, which is always really stressful because you're like, wow, I really stood by everything I said right up until people with stars on their collar got involved. Right?
Yeah.
And they thought it was great. They were like, oh, so
that's awesome.
And for me, the great part about it is I do get to be critical as long as it's constructive. I get to be exactly who I am as an officer, which is like, I call it like I see it. They don't control my content. They don't tell me what I'm supposed to speak on.
That is the move. Yeah. Like that is the only way to do it. Like,
because we had big talks early on about like, look, if you start puppeting me, one, I'm not going to participate.
Right.
But 2, social media is bloodhounds for inauthenticity.
Right.
They will know. They will be upset.
Yes. The E4 Mafia will come for you.
Which is not a group anyone wants against them. And so, I get to tell my real stories, not all of which are incredibly flattering. Right. But I do get to do, because they trust me to do it in a way that's like, look, these things happened. We can grow, we can build. Here's how we improve. Here's how we learn, because there's that positive and constructive element. They're like, okay, there's value here. We'll give you the Omni-Domni. And so that's been really fun and really interesting. Opened up some cool opportunities, and hopefully some more soon. So we're looking to expand that. We're interested. I think we recently got a complaint to Congress where they're like, why are you using social media as part of your like comms strategy?
Okay. I thought you were going to say TikTok because they're talking about banning it and all that crap.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and so,
reasons.
So officially endorsed accounts can't be on TikTok. We can't use any government resources for TikTok. So my TikTok is, supposedly less monitored, and much more, I would say it's a little more raw. It's a little more Alexis and a little less Lieutenant Travis, in a good way, I hope. But but you know, it's an interesting space, and my overwhelming feeling has been, if that's where the sailors are, then leadership should be there.
I'm having more and more trouble not doing that, just because it's where they, like, I don't like it any more than anyone else, like all the negative stuff people talk about, but also that's where they all are, man. And it's like if this is what I'm doing, I feel like I have to do it. But
I think there's ways to do it that are less risky, less invasive, less whatever. I don't follow any of those rules because I'm whatever the opposite of a CT is. Apparently it's a supply officer. It's like technically illiterate and like just guessing.
Both. Yeah.
But you know, I think there's important work both, and that comes from like the content I'm producing. I think it's important that sailors see a lieutenant talking about this honestly, right? Like, or sailors hear some of like my leadership messages. I did a whole thing on like how to read the precepts and like how to provide inputs that will actually like help you get advanced in the Navy. And the number of people who are like, wow, no one has ever taught me that, or I slept through that class at boot camp or whatever.
My most listened to podcasts and most watched YouTube videos are Chiefs board stuff, like how to audit your record, submit your package, how the board evaluates you, all that like dispelling the mist and the mystery surrounding all that kind of stuff. So it's
and people want to, the people we want to stay in the military want to learn those things. They just don't always have, you know, the quality of leadership, the amount of time your leadership has, right? Like the bandwidth they have varies. And if we can produce content and it stays on the internet forever, then we can help people. And it also comes from a monitoring standpoint. So pretty early on in my time on TikTok, a Navy recruiter posted a video that implied some relatively sexist and sexually explicit things, and had a couple of videos that, if it was my sailor and they were making that joke in the office, I probably and I ended up, because I was like considered like, you know, the lieutenant on, you know, the Navy LT on social media at the time, or like a trusted agent, I got tagged in a bunch of it, and I responded and I was just like, you know, went into LT mode where I was just like, hey, if you could reach out, I have some feedback. And they decided to block me and, you know, go rogue, which is always great. I'm always curious when people do that. Like, do you not think I have a husband who also has TikTok? Like, do you not think I have friends who will send me screenshots? Like,
I could spin up another account and just follow you in 5
2
minutes.
seconds.
So it's like, what do you gain there?
And again, and this is where, you know, maybe the CTs are onto something, or maybe people just need to be smarter about what they put on the internet. Like, he had enough information on his TikTok page that I found his command. I found his CMC. Of course I did. Like,
of course you did.
I didn't even have to like put in a CAC and start searching global. Like, I literally was just like, watch this, watch this, watch
Navy
this.
recruiting district, blah, like Google, pick up the phone.
And within a couple of hours, I left a message for his CMC. Where I just, you know, explained. And it kind of ended up in this like weird, my command got involved, his command got involved. And he took most of the offensive videos, all of the offensive videos down. I think he's still on TikTok. I don't check because genuinely I do not care. I think people think like I'm gonna like stalk them or something.
You're not the internet police. Like,
no, but it's like, but you know, if it comes to my attention, and that's part of the reason we need leaders in that space is like, there's always going to be people who either make mistakes or are bad faith actors or whatever. And like, you need someone around to be like, that's not a good choice. Let's try a different choice.
Do you get people reaching out a lot with, maybe they're, like you could say CHOP or Divo or department head or any strong female leadership figure in their orbit, like they don't have a person to go to, so that they're like, hey, can I get some advice on blah? Like, do you get a lot of that kind of interaction?
I do. More than I can respond to most of the time, especially right now in grad school. I've also got 2 toddlers, so I'm a little saturated. But I do my best to respond, especially if people email me, because it's like way easier for me to like sort through emails than sort through DMs.
Right.
But yeah, I'd say I get a couple of people a week. And I have, at this point, probably 6 or 7 people that I mentor on like a pretty regular basis who originally found me through this. There's like Yale is hosting some big leadership conference this week that I should probably know more about because it's got like a retired sec nav coming, but it's like our first week of classes. So whatever. But there's a midshipman coming up to attend. And her mentor, like at her ROTC unit, reached out and was just like, hey, she follows you. A lot of us, like the content you're putting out. Would you mind like sitting down and just chatting with her? And it's like, of course. Like, because I think people sometimes worry that if you're critical, it means that you dislike it. And it's like, no, actually, I love it enough that I'm willing to be critical because I believe it could be better. Right. And also, if I think you're cool, I want to pitch it to you because I want more cool people to work with me. I want fewer people who suck and more people who are awesome. So, and it's not just, it's not just women or supply officers. Like it's a lot of people reach out.
Yeah. No, that's what, Christina has the same thing where, and I don't know if we recorded that part, but like she, her TikTok thing, it's the same thing. And she's a reservist too. So it seems like there's a big gap in like reservists' ability to like interact with leaders that can teach them the things they need to know. So they just like have all these questions and there's not a lot of resources. So she gets a ton of those.
Absolutely.
But that's been the funnest part of this, but it's gotten to a point where like sometimes I'm retired now, so it's a little easier to keep up, but like, I get like emails and DMs and just like, here's like my 1,000-word essay on what's going on and can you help me? And it's like, I'm like I'm going to run myself into the ground one day, like where I can't not help, like, and I feel like I'm trying to be the whole Navy's chief and it's like, I'm drowning, but
Well, and I mean, you talked a little bit, we might not have been recording it either, but like about mental health. And I know one of your previous podcasts was on that. And that's such a big one for me is, so I also have diagnosed depression and anxiety. And so for me, one of the ways that manifests is like when I get overwhelmed, the idea of responding to like text messages and like DMs and stuff becomes overwhelming. And I'm really lucky I have a husband who is like geared up at all times to tell me like, it's not that important. Like, you got to let it go. You can't answer all of them. Early in the game, I was like, I'm never going to miss a message.
Yeah.
And then
that's, ditto. I thought I was a superhero for a long time. And then
everybody does. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, like right at like 18 and a half, probably 19 years. Yeah. It was like 19 years. I was on my last shore duty, which I thought was just a shore. I was planning on going to be a cob and all this stuff. And that's when I was diagnosed with cancer. And then that pulled the pin on this like anxiety, insomnia, depression grenade, and like, of just everything for my whole career. And then, so I started therapy, got to a really good place. And then I very vividly remember this day that felt like a milestone. And that same day, my brother and 2 nieces were killed. And so then I was just a dumpster fire again. And so it's just like,
just the like dam that keeps breaking.
Yeah. And that was what it was like. It was like, I couldn't function for a while. And then once I got off limb doing everything and I made the decision to retire at that point because I'm just like, the wheels are falling off the wagon. That's when I realized I was mortal when I got cancer. And then like, I can't be everything to everybody all the time when I like went through all the mental health stuff. And I mean, I'm still going through it. I'm still on medication. Like I'm seeking out therapy again because I stopped when I retired thinking it would be a good idea. And like my therapist did too, but like, going off meds and stopping therapy and transitioning out of the military and trying to start college full time was not the move.
Too many transitions all at once. For sure. You gotta spread them out.
But it's like I forgot I wasn't 10 feet tall and bulletproof again, and like then I tried to do way too much, and but that's how it was for me too.
That's for me. It's so funny because that's like the double-edged sword of like the meds and the therapy is they get me to this like really good spot. And I It's so
And
embarrassing.
you're like, I'm a superhero again.
Yeah, I have a sticky note that I keep by my meds that says, like, if you think you don't need your meds, that's the meds working.
Yeah.
Which is like,
That's amazing.
I think I saw it. I think I saw it on TikTok. I think it might have been like Elise Myers or someone who said something like that. And it was like, that is the reminder I need, because some days I'm like, no, I feel good. I should just totally skip this. And then I'm like,
yep. I should probably do that because I'm an idiot, but also like I think the me stopping was such a dumpster fire that like I never ever want to do that again. Like,
yeah.
And there's a part of me that's like, I don't want to be on these meds for the rest of my life, but it's like also if I have to be, like, it's a lot better than how I felt and
yeah,
like the way that I was functioning, like that level of, and just like, I don't know, like the way I perceive the world, the way I interact with everybody, I mean, my wife wants to stab me. So it's just like, I can't like, I mean, she doesn't want to say, she feels bad, but it's like, eventually it starts grinding and
yeah,
you know, I don't know. But yeah,
no,
I don't
and I
think I'll do it, but like I probably should. I
think that's like so much of the debate, you know, when we talk about like, oh, the mental health stigma, which like in and of itself is like 1,000 different things all just lumped under one umbrella.
Together, yeah.
And so, and people get that, where it's like, I don't want to be on these meds for the rest of my life. And it's like,
right.
One thing I always try to like talk to people about is, so my mental health problems started as a postpartum issue. And so I had really bad postpartum anxiety and depression with my first kid. And then I was treated when I had my second kid. I was like on meds, I was in therapy, we're really proactive about it. And I try to explain to people like night and day how different my experience, like having a newborn is stressful. There's nothing you can do to make having a newborn not a stressful experience, physically, mentally, emotionally, the whole thing. But my ability to like be present, to function, to let the little things go, all of that, night and day difference.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, do I want to eventually get off meds? Absolutely. But not at the expense of that. And so it's like, I use this time to try and build the tools and the social support and, you know, the habits and I don't know, all of those other things, going out in the sunshine, whatever it is that's supposed to fix my mental health. So that hopefully I'm propped up enough to eventually remove the prop that is the drugs. But for now, that is not it, because
no, I catastrophically failed to prop anything up, and then I'm like, I'm good. And then that was a big part of it for me, is like building like a support structure, like a community, because like I didn't realize the hit I was going to take when I retired, even though like I was happy to be done and happy to not have to do all the things anymore. It's like, even the people that like you don't like, or like you don't want to hang out with, that you are your coworkers, it's like all of those interactions aggregate into this community like function in your life. And then when that goes away, it's like, it just punches this huge hole in you. And it's like, I didn't know that was coming. I didn't know that it was going to be such a big deal. And I did not build any kind of structure. Like there's no, cause I was like, I don't want to hang out with everybody from work. I just don't. So like, but I also wasn't like developing friends outside of work either. So I remember when they were re-upping my security clearance, the investigator had to go talk to my wife, and he asks her like, so like, who are his closest friends? And she gives him this list. And they're all over the country. Like none of them live here. Right. So, sorry, my chair keeps sinking down. It's trying to tell me something. And then he's like, okay, well, like, but like, who are his like closest friends, like in the state I live in Washington? And she goes, me? Like, I'm like, he doesn't really have any local friends. Like, I've got acquaintances and like work people. Yeah. But then when I retired, I didn't even have work people. And so I punched this enormous hole in like, so then I was just like at home all the time, just like isolating. And then, you know, that goes where it goes. And I did not build a scaffolding at all.
such a big thing in the mental health in all communities, really, especially with the transition. TAPS class does not prepare you for, being ripped away from, there's this, people think about the structure of the military and they're like, oh, reporting at 6 a.m. in your uniform. And you're like, sure, I guess that's some structure. Most of us ignore that structure.
Right.
But the structure of like having to interact with people and stuff. Yeah. That's even been a hard transition just to graduate school, because we don't really have like mandatory fun. I don't have like a division that's like, or like a wardroom that we all eat together. Yeah. So I pretty much hang out with my husband.
Do you have which
I like, but
yeah, I mean, I do too. My wife's my best friend. Like I love spending time with her. But do you have like, so like when I retired and then I started school, and it was undergraduate because I wanted to do psychology, which was totally different from what I did before. And I just felt like an alien, not just because I'm the old guy in the room, but like, none of the people were like, I didn't recognize any of them. You know what I mean? Like I didn't feel at home there. And then I remember, it was like 3 days in, I was just, every time I would go to class, I'd just be like exploring campus, kind of checking out where stuff is. And I went up to the student veterans office or whatever. And as soon as I walked in, there's this Army vet kid there. He's probably mid-20s, late 20s. And I don't know this kid. I don't even remember his name, but like I immediately recognized him and I was like, you're my people. Like I know what that is. Like, and do you have that like feeling, or like, do you struggle with that, that not like that kind of stuff not being there, or are there mechanisms that kind of address that?
So at my school, they like really pride themselves on everybody being really diverse. So everybody's a fish out of water to some extent. We have like a lot of international students, like we have people who are straight out of undergrad. We have people like me who worked for a long time first. I mean, it's really diverse. And so if everyone's different, then no one is too different.
Right.
Apparently, unless you're a mom. Me being a mom has really put me on the outside of a lot of stuff, just because like they're like, let's go get drinks at 6. And I'm like, well, bath time.
I can't.
You want to drink some bath water? And they're like, oh, we should go to this thing at 1 a.m. And I'm like, cool, I have to be up like 4 hours after that. So
I have kids, I got to get to wherever. Yeah.
Babysitters are expensive, the whole lot. Yeah. And so but it's to exactly what you said, which is like all of the people I would consider friends in my class, they're all from the vet club, because I don't have to explain things. I don't have to like, and I mean, I have acquaintances, other parents, people in my cohort who are just nice people. I'm super introverted. I like to sit at home with my husband.
That's how I am. People
2020 was a great year for me.
People look at me like I'm stupid when I say that. Like I'm really like, I'll tell them like I'm an introvert. I'll tell them I don't like conflict, which for people that have ever worked with me as a chief in the Navy are just like, shut up. Like you're lying. Cause I was like, I'm loud, I'm vocal, I'm not afraid to chin check someone. But I built all that over time because I just saw that it was necessary to take care of my people. It's like, I hate conflict, but I won't shy away from it if it's necessary to get the job done. But that was a developed skill over a long period of time. And but if you give me a choice, sweatpants, dark room, video games, leave me alone. Like,
right. So good. And same. And so like my kind of ongoing joke about it is like, I keep getting adopted by like an extrovert who's like, oh, this person seems nice and also lonely. I should, and I've got a couple of those who will like seek me out and send me a message and be like, there's a hockey game. You should come to the hockey game. And it's like,
come with us.
Okay. Which is how I met all my best friends. So it's really working for me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have
and
jujitsu.
And
that's about it.
Oh, nice.
There's a bunch of veterans there. None of them, well, not none of them. There's a handful of active duty kids too, like, cause I'm pretty close to the sub base still. So there's some kids on active duty, and that's kind of fun because I still get to kind of like I'm like the cool chief uncle, so they can come like tell me things they wouldn't tell their actual chief, and I can give them like the unadulterated truth, like feedback about how I feel and stuff. And then there's like some Marine vets, Army vets, stuff like that. So they're very like, that's like my safe space. That's like where I go.
Yeah.
And it's like physical mental health of just doing something hard too, like the jiu-jitsu part of it. But then like just being around those people that's like the thing that does it for me, I think.
Well, and I mean, it's like exactly what you were saying with the fun uncle. Like you're not there, you're a chief, but you're not their chief.
Yeah.
That's a lot of like that same safe space that I get out of social media, which is like people reach out to me because I'm a lieutenant, but I'm not their lieutenant.
Their lieutenant. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so I get, one of the things I get a lot is people who are looking to switch communities. You know, and they, you know, they're afraid, or they're looking to get out, and they're like, you know, there's this big stigma against telling their leadership that you want anything except to be CNO and MCPON. And I can tell, you know, I hate that, because I know, me too, so much. I make videos about that, like specifically just trying to break that down because I hate it so much. I hate it from the leadership perspective because I can't be a good leader to you if you're like afraid to tell me what you really want.
Right.
And I hate it from like the pressure I feel, which is like, like, I wish I could just be honest with you, but I'm afraid of what's going to happen.
Yeah. And, well, the irony too is like, I have found that as a chief, like when people are, I'll say like, what do you want to do? Are you trying to do a career? Are you trying to do something different? Are you trying to, like get out and go do whatever? And whatever they tell me, it's like, okay, what do we got to do to get you there? And the irony is, if you do that and you just support them and meet their needs, you're going to have higher retention. Like shocking, like take care of their human needs. And oh my God, they want to stick around because you're taking care of them. Because like kids that like, they say, oh, I want to be a police officer. I'm here for the college money or whatever. Okay. What do we got to do to get you? Like, what do you need to do in the next 4 or 5 years to prepare yourself to transition out of the Navy to be a police officer? And can we get you a associate's degree in criminal justice before you get out? Can we, you know, like, I don't know, we'll do the research on like how you apply and what you have to do so that you're doing it. And there's not this big gap between you separating and becoming a police officer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was a career counselor on, my first Chiefs tour was on Jimmy Carter. And I had a couple of kids that wanted to be CTs. Yeah, now I'm fancy pants. Everybody's like, ooh, Jimmy Carter. I was just the cook, chief. It was not. It was not cool. I mean, it was cool, but I had two cooks that they were like, "We're going to get out because we don't want to be cooks." And I'm like, "Well, what do you want to be?" And they're like, "We want to be CTs," but they said we can't cross-rate. And I was like, "Well, luckily, your chief's the command career counselor, and you can cross-rate." And I just did the research, got the community information, and then found the SCORE program. And I don't know if it's still real, but it was then. This was like 2011, 2012, probably.
It's probably dead by now.
Yeah, probably.
Really short lifespan on Navy programs.
But it's this program in the Milpers manual. Even my Cobb, who was on his third Cobb tour, was like, and I love him. He's my mentor to this day. He pinned my Master Shoemakers on me. I'm not like dumping on him or anything, but he thought the program was dead at the time. And he's like, that's not real. That's an old program. I'm like, well, it's in the Milpers man that's current, and I'm going to apply for it. And the worst thing they can do is say no. And everybody just kept telling the two cooks and like the previous career counselors, just like, they're never going to let you leave submarines. And turns out they need CTs too. So I SCORE re-enlisted. So it's like selective conversion, re-enlistment, whatever. I don't know. So some
fancy acronym.
It's an incentive to re-enlist, but they get to convert to a different rate. And they were both second classes, converted to different flavors of CT, and now they're both chiefs. And so it's like they were going to get out of the Navy. And so it's like, if you do that stuff, you get like, you take care of them, and the Navy has way more value than they ever would have got out of them if we were just like, no, you can't. You got to be a cook forever.
Because they're already indoctrinated, right? They've already done boot camp. They've already, they're a known quantity at that point. Like they know how to show up, right? They know how to wear the uniform.
The big one was the security clearances. Like on Carter, everybody's got a TSSCI security clearance. So it's like not only the expense of getting it, but just the eligibility. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's good. But it's like, it's just being eligible to get it at all. Like there's a lot of people because of credit or a criminal record or whatever, can't even get that clearance. Like they might be able to join the military, but they can't get the clearance to be a CT. So it was
super bitter about TSSCIs. Just we're heading down a dark path for me because I was like so I joined the sub force when they were like super backed up, getting everybody's TSSCIs. And so I got approved for my TSSCI the day that I detached from my submarine. Did my entire tour with like an interim.
Yeah, you have to have one because of the parts that are that and whatever.
Yeah. Like as the SUP, I'm like out there just like handling classified parts, and all I have.
And I was like on Carter, it was like all the supply officers, they were read into like every single super secret squirrel thing because they have to order the parts for the super secret squirrel thing. So
the fancy stuff. That's some of my students. And like it's all I had was like a piece of paper from my CO that was like, nah, she's good.
She's cool.
But they approved it the last day, and then I guess like once it's all approved, the Navy has to write some final check to actually like get the information and put it in your record. And the Navy was like, well, technically she's not attached to a submarine anymore, so she doesn't need it. So in my record, it says like investigation complete. And then it just says, but she still has a secret. And it's like, I did all of this work for that.
That's well, they already paid all the money for the investigation. I don't know why they didn't just finish it.
Give it to me. I know, really sad.
But
it's
ridiculous.
It would have expired by the time I'm going to get out anyway. But
true.
And so we were talking about it a little bit before, which is like so many of the things that all of the like not little complaints, but if you pile up all of the complaints that you see on places like Reddit, and you look for like the one common thread, so much of it comes down to willing, passionate, and informed leadership. And like one of the big things I push is, never take a no from the person who can't say yes. And so it's like you were saying, like I kept getting told, no, this program's outdated, this program's whatever. And it's like, look, if you're not the person who can actually sign the SCORE reenlistment, your no actually doesn't mean that much to me.
Yeah, exactly. Man, you're the same person. It's like I am a woman on the internet because we're the same person. Like,
there you go. Like, we should have seen. I at one point needed a better cook chief, so you should have signed up.
Should have. But I didn't want to go to Kings Bay.
Nobody wants to go to Kings Bay. I didn't want to go to Kings Bay.
Yeah, the mafia wants to go to Kings Bay. That's fine.
They just want to stay there, like
stay there forever.
They just ruminate. But yeah, and so it's so important to me because like what you're talking about was like you kept fighting for your sailor and you kept going and you kept going. And it's like, man, your sailors are so lucky because not only did you actually care enough to do that, which like as an entering argument already gets a bunch of officers like and chiefs and other leaders like right out the door, like they just aren't interested. But then to have the persistence and to just have the mental bandwidth, like how many times in your career did you get told do more with less, do more with less, do more with less? And it's like, all right, well, eventually my bandwidth is going to be as small as it can get. And you can't just keep throwing stuff at me. And that's always the hardest thing. And to go back to like the DMs where it's like, I want to help everybody all the time. I will absolutely crumble under that. And
and I did. Like that's what did it largely, I think, is I redlined for as long as I possibly could being that guy. And I don't regret it, but at the same time, it's like like we were talking about that 20% increase in leadership confidence. It's like if everybody was competent, I wouldn't have to do that. And that's what killed me is like the vast majority of the stories that I tell on the podcast are me helping, like not my sailor, even though it is like, I view them all as mine. It's like sailors outside of my division and department. It's like, I was the ship's chief and they would there was a joke on my last submarine that I was like the cob, even though I wasn't, because they would come to me and it's just, and it got to the point where, I mean, I was signing the plan of the day. I could sign everything the cob could sign in CTQS, like, because he just was like, oh, you want to do my job for me? Here you go. Like,
right. I'll take the paycheck. You take the work. Sounds great.
Yeah. And that's exactly how the relationship worked. And it was, I mean, I wrote that man's emails.
Oh, so you had my cob too. Cool.
Yeah.
He's going to hear this and he's going to like find me and murder me.
That's fine. No. Fight me. I'm retired.
We had other beef. It's fine. But no, and you're exactly right, which is like, I don't know how many officers and chiefs we have in the Navy, but if we had a 20% increase in all of those people, we'd be set, but we can't increase it by 20%, but we could make most of the people that are out there 20% better at their job. And
yeah,
I don't think, for the most part, I don't think it's a willingness problem. I think it's a resource problem where, you know, we're not teaching effective things with like modern research in ways that help leaders be really impactful.
Yeah, I think it's probably, it's like a prioritization problem is the way that I look at it. Is like the military they think like leadership is this like tertiary function that it's like a thing we sort of have to worry about, but not really. And that the prime directive is like technical and institutional expertise. And it's like, that's not real. Like, it's just not. And the reason, like, cause, and I'm writing this USNI essay cause it's a long story, but people have been trying to get me to do it forever. I'm trying to like do the essay contest thing.
Heck yeah.
But
I did that a few years ago. I did not win. So best.
Nah, I'm probably not going to win either, but it's worth a shot. It's, they think that those things are the most important, but every time we have like if you're not qualified, if you're delinquent, if you have issues with credit, if you have issues outside of work, if you can't show up on time, like any of the things that that would fall under the leadership umbrella, but we like to call technical expertise or institutional expertise or whatever. It's like, it's always a leadership failure, but we spend zero time and resources effectively, like on, or any meaningful time and resources on developing and educating people as leaders. And then we wonder why it all fails. We wonder why, like, there's this huge divide between the Chiefs mess and junior enlisted, and between the wardroom and junior enlisted and all the other groups, right? It's like, of course there is. Like, of course there is. And what is even worse is most of the people wearing khakis to work have a really warped and like analysis of their own leadership competence because their bad behavior has been validated by promotions and awards over a long period of time. So it's like they get to the senior enlisted academy where they're getting accredited, like really robust leadership development and education, and 70% of the audience is tuned out because I already know what I'm doing. I'm just here for the check in the box in case they ever make this mandatory to make Master Chief. And it's like, and it's really good. Like, I went as a chief, I was eligible for senior chief. I made it probably the next year. But I loved it, but if we were doing leadership development and education correctly, it wouldn't be the senior enlisted academy. It'd be like the new chief academy. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the stuff they're teaching should be taught to every single, new chief. Like, within the first like 2 years of putting on anchors, they should be going to the senior enlisted academy. And then there should be like more advanced stuff for the other people. And it's like, and you don't even have the throughput to get every chief in the Navy through the senior enlisted academy. So it's just like,
I know, which goes back to your resourcing, which is like, we put, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't be technical experts, right? Obviously I worked at the schoolhouse where like our main focus was teaching the lingo and the rules and whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I think we're starting to recognize the importance, like the long-term investment there of, it's expensive to put everyone through real up-to-date, training on how to be a really good leader. But you know what's more expensive than that? A retention crisis.
Crashing a ship into a super tanker.
Crashing a ship is more expensive than that.
Consistently losing human beings to suicide. Like,
exactly.
Rampant acute mental health issues.
And well, I'm not going to comment on the rampantness or not of, sexual misbehavior and criminal behavior. And we can't, it's unrealistic for us to be like, if we had perfect leaders, none of this would exist in the Navy. But it's costly. The way we're running it right now is costly. And if there was a way to do like the big fancy MBA cost benefit analysis of like, this is how much it would cost to make the leaders better, and this is how much it's costing us right now, I think people would be surprised about the benefit. Yeah. And also I wish they could do a similar analysis of how much less efficient we are as a fighting force based on manning and like retention and recruitment issues that we're having. Cause it's like how many submarines were going to see undermanned before we were offering 6-figure enlistment bonuses to be fogging a mirror, like, I mean,
it's
Gotta go back and
insane.
make different life choices.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine going to sea on a submarine right now, because like they got to have port starboard watch standards in every department. Like it's insanity.
Awful. And I get and you're getting so close to something that just like, if we get on it, it's gonna light a fire.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Oh no!
Tell me what ledge I got to push you over.
we go for, so like I said, I'm looking a lot at behavioral economics and organizational behavior in my schooling. That is something that I find the research on very interesting. And the military has long solved personnel problems with money. We throw the enlistment bonus, we throw the, the selective, SLRB, we throw the department head bonus, we throw the initial, whatever,
like C duty or the
$1,000. Yeah.
Incentive pay. I forget.
I'm not saying that incentive pays are bad. I'm not saying that when you're doing the math of stay in or get out, that tossing a $30,000 check onto the stay in side of the equation isn't worthwhile. But there's like really good research out there that using money as a primary motivator for that is actually really damaging to all of the internal motivators that might keep people around. That we know that includes the military, because there was a huge longitudinal study that I think went over like 10 or 11 years using West Point cadets, where they talked to them about like why they went to West Point, and then why are they officers, and then they looked at retention rates over time. And surprise, surprise, like the more money got mentioned, the less time they stayed. Yeah. And there are some other, things going on there, but when we throw these, if we are throwing money at people to join or to stay without fixing the reasons that they want to leave or that they're afraid to join, all we're doing is like, we're feeding something that's dying. We're giving water to the dying horse, which is like maybe a nice thing to do, but it's not going to keep it from dying. Right. Well, and I'm not saying that, the Navy's dying. That's dramatic, but
it's withering.
No, I hope
having
not.
An existential crisis right now.
Halfway through my career, don't die yet. No, because and for me, a lot of it goes back to like, there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what we do and what our day-to-day life is like. And if people understood that more, I think they'd be less afraid of joining the Navy. And then if we took better care of the people who are in the Navy, they would want to stay. And you know who's the best recruiter? A happy sailor is a great recruiter.
Even a happy veteran. A happy veteran separates. Yeah.
A happy veteran's a great recruiter. Right.
And we so often send our separating sailors into civilian life just salty, bitter, jaded humans that are just like, don't do it. Like, I mean, go read Reddit just for 5 minutes and see it. But also like just a good like anecdotal case study is naval nuclear power. Like the bonuses have been 50K or above since I joined the Navy 20 plus years ago. And it's like, so clearly it's not working, because those kids are almost universally miserable, and the bonuses just keep going up and up and up and up to try to recruit people and retain people. And it's just like, clearly something's not working here. Like there's very obviously extremely negative things about that pipeline and life cycle as a sailor in that community that need to be addressed and fixed. And I mean, look no further than the reactor's critical page for like any of the commentary. I mean, like, I'm always like, take the pulse of the Navy. Like, if you want to do that, just go look at all the meme pages, go to Reddit, like,
right. Exactly. But like if you want to really know what the E4 Mafia thinks, you just hit up Reddit, check, see what's trending. And I think people, the go-to phrase in communities like that has been like, well, it's the way it is. Like the job is hard, the work is, and
it'll always be hard, but
it'll always be hard.
It doesn't have to suck all the time.
And people are super good at getting through sucky situations. Like humans on the whole, really good at getting through sucky situations if their motivations are actually in line and they're appreciated and their expectations are managed. Yep. And I got into a big thing a while back about, because people get really weird about military influencers and whatever. And it's like,
Mhm.
I think it's important that we tell the real stories, because if
Yeah.
someone knows when they're coming in that sea duty is hard,
Yeah.
that the days are long,
Mhm.
and that seasickness is a real thing, and that, you know, that you're going to get yelled at probably a good number of times for several things that are not your fault. And if you can tell them all of that really honestly, and then you can be like, but it's kind of fun, and you make really good friends, and the memories are really cool, and you get cool opportunities, and the benefits are cool, where, you know, like,
Right.
I can take my kids to the doctor whenever I want. That's really cool right now.
Yeah.
They're toddlers. They're gross. They're sick all the time. And I think if you're honest with people about that, and they come in with like, this is going to be hard, but worth it, or this might suck for a little while, but there's a payoff at the end.
Yeah.
One, you're just going to get happier sailors off the bat.
Right.
Because they aren't going to come in thinking that this is a Tom Cruise movie, even though it's about to be a Tom Cruise movie, I hear. But, you know, they aren't thinking it's going to be Rihanna's Navy. They understand a little bit more. And if they can adjust, then I think you'd be surprised at the payoff. And then, and that's like a short-term-ish solution, then we should just make it better. Like, we should just make it more enjoyable to work here.
Yeah, I'm a big Maslow's hierarchy of needs guy. Like, I beat that to death. And it's like, for me, it's, if the leadership competence is higher, those sailors who come in with that, like, I don't know that I could name a single person that has told me they came into the Navy only for like the college benefits or the money or like the SRB or whatever. Like, sure, it'll like push them over the edge of either enlisting or re-enlisting, but it's always, I want to be big. I want an adventure. I want to be part of something bigger than myself. I want to participate in the nation's defense. I want to, you know, like, there's all these reasons. And some of those were my reasons for initially enlisting, but then if you don't have your needs met along the way, like, all you're going to do is develop these, this bitterness towards the organization, because all of the reasons I came to you, none of them are being met. Like, none of them are being fulfilled. And then I can't even get basic needs met. Like, as far as like there's certain times where I'll hear about like the MCPON AMA Reddit thread thing. Like, there was a lot of sailors talking about like ridiculous pay issues over years, and like getting evicted, or like being homeless when they got out of the Navy, or like just like insane stuff. And it's like, not only are you losing those people for those reasons, like, and you're losing really high functioning people that you spend a lot of money and time training, but then like we were just saying, they're a recruiting poster, man. Like, when they get out, like, they're a walking, talking, animated recruiting tool, or a recruiting obstacle, most likely, like, more often than not. So it's insane to me that we don't focus more on this thing in particular, because it's on just leadership development, education. I'm convinced it would fix everything. And again, my definition of fix is dramatically improve, but like I know, like military sexual trauma is never going to go away. Like, people struggling with mental health issues as a result of the military will never go away, particularly because of what our like prime directive is like, kill people and break their stuff. Like, we go into a kinetic conflict, it's like, combat's going to happen. It's going to be traumatic. Other things are going to happen. It's going to be traumatic. Like, I would have not escaped the military had everything been happening the way that I wanted it to, without a certain level of anxiety and other issues, just because that's what we do. But it didn't have to be the way that it was. And I probably could have done a longer career and been more valuable to the Navy as a cob and a CMC, but I didn't get to do that because the wheels fell off the wagon. And a lot of people don't get to do that because it's not sustainable. And I know a lot of kids that separate because they're like, I hate my life. Like, I'm miserable. I'm pissed off and all the time. Some of them do get into depression and anxiety and all that stuff, but some of them are just like, this isn't fun. Ever. Like, I hate it. And so they're just like, and it's not, none of the reasons they came in were fulfilled. And then none of the the basic needs they have as a human being were ever met by that leadership. And like you were saying, like the willingness for me in my observations and analysis as a chief over a little more than a decade when I was on active duty, it was like all of these chiefs that everybody hates so much, almost all of them are willing. Like I've had the chief that everybody hates in the chief's mess with burying his face in his hands, just going, I don't know what to do. I just want to take care of them. And the division wants to burn him in effigy, you know? And it's like, they just don't have the competence. They don't have the tools because they were never educated and developed by the organization. And the thing that drives me the most nuts about the way that we prioritize leadership development and education under everything else on the planet is like I would, and being a submariner, you'll understand this more than the rest of the Navy. Is like we will never, ever, ever, ever put somebody in the position to do anything on a submarine without being fully trained and qualified. Ever. You're never going to stand sticks. You're never going to sit chief watch or dive. You're never going to be in any kind of a watch station, or like you're never going to shoot trash without being fully qualified and trained to do that thing. So how dare we put anyone ever in a leadership position without fully training and qualifying them? And we don't do it like at all. And then we're like, what happened?
What happened?
Why these people are failing.
And it gets back to something you were talking about earlier, which is like, there's this big emphasis on technical skills, which is fine. Right. I want the people working on my nuclear reactor to have
everybody to know how to fight the submarine. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Having been on a sub when we had a hydraulic rupture, like it is good news when like everyone knows what they're doing in that situation because
100%.
We resurfaced, which is the goal. But there's this, old outdated term of hard skill, soft skill, right? The technical skill versus, the touchy feely people skill. And it gives off this impression that it's easier and less important. And it is neither of those things.
I agree.
It's actually harder because it's always righty tighty, lefty loosey, unless you're anyway.
Unless it's not
that one valve, unless it's that one valve on the submarine that if you turn it the wrong way, it'll dump goo on you. But the technical things following an MRC is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and the oil's changed. Yeah. Dealing with a person is like, here's a giant branch plan of all the different ways this could go. And there's facial expression and there's communication and tone.
Subjectivity.
And it's really hard. And I think that's why a lot of people shy away from it and why we just say like, oh, we'll just make it OJT. You just watch other leaders. Other leaders will teach you. Yeah. And one of the big problems with that in the military is that like, okay, so if the master chiefs today are mentoring the chiefs and then those chiefs become master chiefs and they're mentoring the chiefs and those lieutenants, mentor the ensigns and then they become lieutenants. And it's like, so
negative
where's
feedback
the outside
loop.
Voice?
Yeah.
Like, where's the learning? If something's broken, we're just going to keep passing down the broken thing. And there has to be a way to interrupt that cycle.
Right.
And there's some cool stuff coming out about that. Like CMP has an initiative going on right now. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they're evaluating
Get Real, Get Better.
Get Real, Get Better is the CNO's thing, which is like a whole
just a repackaged Brilliant on the Basics or something like.
No, it's not. It's very much intended.
Dove deep on it yet.
It's intended to be like an institutionalized version of basically the MCPON AMA, where it's like giving access to the people who can make change to the people who need the change. Without all of like the, all the other stuff.
Yeah, 17 layers
of people saying, no, it's fine.
Now,
it's a lot about that. It's about, getting to the root of problems quickly and getting them fixed. But CMP's whole thing is much more about like, we understand that EQ is important. Emotional intelligence is important in our leaders. And they're looking at ways to start evaluating that before they put people into, triad positions, right? Like, how do we put a Navy psychologist here who can actually figure out if this person is capable of leading 200, 600, 1,000 sailors in an effective way, because there's communication skills and there's.
I like the idea, but like the problem for me is like I had a conversation with CMC, like I was checking into that flag command that ended up being my last shore duty, right? And the CMC was a guy I knew from the Carter. He was the chief when he was there. He was my squadron CMC when I was on my last boat, and then he moved over to this flag command. Like break glass in case of emergency CMC that I wish I could clone like 1,000 times and put on every ship submarine. And, you know, like he's just the best, the best. I like him and the Cobb I had on Carter are like the two just, I like my two favorite leaders I've ever encountered in the military. And I checked in with him and he said, he basically like one of his first questions is like, so you're going to be a Cobb or not? And I was like still kind of on the fence on if I was going to retire or if I was going to go Cobb. And he goes, you have 1 year to make a decision, and then I'm just going to light you on fire every day. And but then what he said to me though was the reason he was so on fire about it. I thought I was going to have a conversation that was going to go something like, yeah, you're doing really well. You have a great trajectory. There's some things we need to work on. We'll finish your quals, and then I think you'll be a solid Cobb.
Yeah.
He said, I could put a cookie on you right now and you'd be better than 90% of the guys I got on the waterfront. He goes, I got guys down there that can barely fog a mirror. And so when we roll out a program to filter triad members based on like an emotional intelligence score or anything else, it's like, well, where do we place that bar? Because I have to fill these spots. So quota-driven, we're the victim of quota-driven systems no matter what. It's like I have X number of warships that need senior enlisted leaders and squadrons and CB battalions and hospitals and whatever. And it's like, so I don't think it's a bad step. I just, how do you, okay, so I screen this person that's fully qualified to be a CMC, that's in their window and that's ready to be detailed. And I have 20 gaps and 3 people to detail. And I screen them and they fail the EQ thing. What do I do?
Well, they're going anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I can only assume that it's going to become a pump and not a filter, you know, like, cause that's what everything is right now. And what kills me is that I'm like a hopefully not negative version of like a walking, talking human critique where I'm just like, I want the root cause. Keep going. Well, the problem behind the problem behind the problem behind the problem. And I always arrive at leadership, development, and education. Like if we fix that, and again, the definition of fix being like just a market improvement, like a noticeable, measurable improvement in all of the leadership competence metrics. But like, that and therein lies the rub. What are they? Because like I'm a big critic of the Chief Petty Officer's Creed. Anybody that listens to me knows that I think it's largely ridiculous. It's very vague. It doesn't communicate who we are and what we do. It's an ineffective attempt at like a creed or a mission statement of any kind. But if you look at the mission, vision, and guiding principles, which, oh, by the way, are what our eval bullets are for chief evals for E7, E9, it's like, that is a way better communication and measurement. Like it's metrics. It's like, this is, and it's not perfect, but it's way better. And for some reason, like if you look at laying the keel and you look at, we have the mandatory like leadership development training during the chief season is teaching to the creed. Why are we teaching to this? Basically what the Chief's Petty Officer's Creed is somebody wrote a really great pinning ceremony script and then they're like, hey, we need a creed. And they're like, oh, hey, I got this really great thing. Copy, paste, edit a little bit, send. And it's not,
Look, if you're not copy pasting in the Navy, you're doing too much work. So
it's not useless. Like, it's not like there are things in there that I think are great and they sound really nice, but they're not accomplishing anything in like codifying a like mission statement for chief petty officers. Like that's not what that is, but that's how it's treated. And it drives me absolutely nuts because I think it's like it's misdirecting, purposefully misdirecting chief petty officers on who they need to be, what they should be striving for. Like what are the metrics by which a chief is measured? It's not the creed at all. Like there's some nice things in there, but there's also a lot of ridiculous things in there. But if you look at the mission, vision, guiding principles, which are literally how you're evaluated, thank God, it's like, that's what we should be teaching to. Or Or even better, let's analyze and update those to be even better and have one that's like emotional intelligence. Like that would be incredible. But
yeah. Hey, do you want to come write my thesis for next semester? You're nailing it.
I'm happy to update, edit, revise, or just be a sounding board. But it maddens me and has for a really long time that therein, like, so we get back into that loop of like, I feel like I'm just shouting into the void a lot when I do the podcast because I don't see a recognition of a problem at all. Like I don't even think they know the depth and breadth of the problem that they have and some of the intricacies of it, because you don't see anyone talking about like Mick Pond and I call him Honia all the time. Turns out his name's Honey. Didn't know that. I got a buddy who knows him. You pronounce his name Honey. Yeah, okay. Weird. Who'd have thunk it? Like, and I've never heard anybody say it that way, but apparently
that's how you said it that way.
Yeah, I don't, whatever. I was just sounding it out, but and then so let's say like Mick Pond Honey, right? Or any Mick Pond. They are probably like, if graded on a curve, right, their leadership competence is probably high. But if like objectively evaluated based on a set of criteria that we develop using all of the knowledge that we have in the psychology, human development, leadership development, whatever realm, where would they grade? Where would they fall out? Where would I fall out? I don't know, but I'm interested to find out, and it's like, that's something
we have data on that. I think.
Do we?
Well, so here's
I'm
controversial proposal.
Go ahead.
I'm absolutely gonna get a call from the NDA director on this, but no. Just gonna be like, no.
It's my fault. It's not just blaming on me. I'm an old retired guy. They can't hurt me no more.
Yeah. She gave me a call. I did a podcast the other day, and I was telling people that coming in undes is like a trap, and she was like, well, don't do that.
It is kind of.
I mean, I didn't quite say trap. I was just honest. Anyway, the number of people, I would give it like the 05 to senior chief, master chief level, like whatever, like that rank of equivalent rank is. The number of people who get out of the military and then apply to like vice president positions at corporations, apply to like, like C blank O positions at corporations and don't even get callbacks.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, 20 years of superior military leadership. This company would be so honored to have me.
Oh my
and
God,
the corporate world. And I see this because I'm like, I'm coming in with 10 years, almost 10 years in the Navy.
Yeah.
Like my leadership classes here at school, they should be honored to have me. And then it's like, nah, man. Like you learned a very specific kind of leadership in a very specific system.
Yeah.
A system that has some places where it could improve.
Right.
And that does not automatically make you on that unnormalized curve ready for those big positions, which is why you then see them all start leadership consulting companies. But you've seen those LinkedIn posts.
Oh my God, I have. I know some of those people.
So we do have data.
Well.
We do have data on this, that it's a specific kind of leadership for one, but that it's not, it doesn't necessarily pan out.
Can you be more like, when you say specific kind of leadership, can you like get into some detail on like what that means? Because like I look at it kind of the opposite of like, I'm not objectively, I'm not like measuring myself as like the GOAT, or like, I don't think I think I'm a pretty good leader. Like some people think I'm great at it. Some people think I'm horrible at it. Right. But what I noticed is the more I studied leadership and psychology and all those things, right, I would start using the things in real life. And the two things I noticed is, one, they all worked really, really well, and my people responded to them. And two, I was the only one doing it largely, unless you would get like people that had this natural, like they're a natural empath, or they've learned some ability or skill, like they're really good listeners for some whatever reason. So they would have like certain skills that were like high, but then other ones were kind of like the status quo. So what can you go into more detail on what you mean by like it's a very specific type of leadership? Because like I think if in my brain it's like if we taught them what the civilian world's looking for, we would be wildly successful within the confines of the military. Like those leaders would be doing a way better job. So it's like,
absolutely.
I think so. I don't think it's a different form of leadership. I think it's just leadership and competence, period. Like they're just low in leadership competence.
Well, so I think there's a couple of things in there. One of which is like, it's that feedback loop we were talking about earlier, which is like, we teach our own people the way we do things, and then we evaluate them on the way that we taught them to do things.
Right.
Which is why you get a lot of military leaders who are like a lot of other military leaders. Not a lot of variation there.
Yeah.
Some of which goes into our eval system and our promotion system and things like that too, where we filter out people who have wandered off the golden path sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I think there's definitely something there. I think, so then the other thing I think that kind of surprised me, even though I should have seen it coming, is like the UCMJ and the idea of intrusive or invasive leadership, where it's like, I need to know about your housing situation and your finances and all of this. Like none of that translates. That's not how anybody else operates. You don't have the ability to like demote someone if they're late to work a bunch of times. And so there are some key differences that I think should be really empowering. It should make leadership easier for us. And I think we've leaned on it a lot so that we didn't necessarily look at those other competencies as much. And then you said something that is like the key to the whole thing that I like want to spend all of next year at grad school studying, which is like, I don't think leadership is a talent at all. I don't think anyone,
it's a very learnable skill. And
I think it's a huge set of skills.
Yeah.
It's communication skills.
Right. It's like
emotional intelligence. The more of those you have, there's a new-ish idea called full range leadership, which is like, if you took all of the old school ideas about leadership styles, you actually should have every skill for every one of those leadership styles so that you can pick the exact right tool you need for each situation.
100%. I hate when people say the leadership style, this is just my leadership style. I'm like, that's not real. There's no such thing. There's just a bunch of tools. Yeah. That's an intellectually lazy thing to say. Like, do better.
It's like and it goes back to the it's sort of the leadership version of like, if you don't like me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. Which is like, being an authoritarian leader, there's a time and a place for that.
Right.
Like, I don't need a group vote when the ship is on fire. I need I need stuff to go.
I need compliance and react.
Yeah. And transformational leadership is great if you're taking a ship that just failed an inspection and needs to pick itself up.
Well, but what is transformational leadership? Is it just a super competent full range leader? Because that's what I look at it as. It's like,
no, it's not. It's a set of skills, right?
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
like it's just somebody that's like unlocked all the achievements or most of them. You know what I mean? Like, I've leveled up a lot of times.
Convincing people to change is a different skill than convincing people to comply, which is a different skill than convincing people to innovate. And to go way back to the why is there the disconnect between the junior officers and the junior enlisted and their senior counterparts, and kind of a secondary break between the chief's mess and the JOs is like, okay, we select people for a certain set of skills. And then we expect them at some magical moment of here to just have a different set of skills.
I say the same thing differently all the time. I'm like, we're selecting for your potential, and they say this at the Chiefs board, we're selecting for their potential to be a chief based on erroneous criteria. Like, they don't say the erroneous part out loud, but it's like we're selecting you based on your technical competence to do leadership things. It doesn't make any sense. Have you ever heard of a book called The Peter Principle?
It sounds super familiar.
You should read it. It's so good. It's kind of like a comedic
I've
delivery.
Heard of The Peter Principle.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of a comedic delivery of a really interesting principle of basically like you're inevitably going to promote to your level of incompetence within any hierarchy.
Promoting to incompetence.
The book
absolutely.
I love the
great?
book so much. Oh God, it's so fun. I was reading
just to my Libby.
Yeah, just the introduction. I was sitting in the medical waiting room for my like number to be called to pharmacy, and I had a highlighter, and I was just like laughing out loud as and highlighting stuff as I went. It's such a great book. I did some podcasts on it too a while back, but same thing. Like it's we're promoting you to a position to do something wildly different than the criteria with which we're evaluating you for your potential to lead based on stuff that has nothing to do with leadership. It's ridiculous.
And then most people are, and it's not that people can't make that jump.
Yeah.
And I think, and I, maybe this is like a hot take coming from a JO. I think there's a lot of power in the chief's mess. Having someone who is a technical expert, who is supposed to be like the liaison to, the part of the decision-making team is important because like, I remember at one point, I think I asked my LSs to inventory something and I really thought it was going to be like an hour long. No, you know what it was? It was my CSs. You're going to hate me for this. We had to inventory our entire freezer underway.
Oh yeah. I used to do that every underway. It sucked, but on the right. So
this was like 4 days after we got underway. This was like a fully packed out freezer.
Why?
This was like not a good. There was
some shenanigans.
Look, I'm gonna say that the chief on that my chief on that deployment did not stay with the ship much longer.
Okay.
And we'll move forward. And I really thought it was gonna be like a couple hours. Like in my head, and it was not. And having someone who has like moved that amount of frozen ground beef and can tell me like, this is going to be like a 6-7 hour.
Oh yeah.
Thing.
A fully loaded out freezer. Yeah.
I was like, that's important. And that's a really like, it's not like a highly technical example, but but we should be training people. We should be providing that gap where it's like, you are the expert in how to do this thing. Let me teach you how to be a good communicator, a good planner, how to look for signs of mental distress. Let me teach you this wide set of skills, how to read a room. Just like how to read a room.
Exactly. And that's the saltiness I have with that mental health handbook is I'm looking through it and it sounds great. It sounds great. There's a lot of things in there that it's telling leaders to do that the institution has never taught them how to do. So how,
and they're working on it. I will plug that they're working on it.
I didn't see anything in the nav admin about like mandatory training or a school inbound or whatever, like a resource to teach them how to do all those things.
Yeah. So, so part of the NDA stuff, not non-disclosure, Navy Digital Ambassador.
Okay. Got it.
That NDA. Part of it is sometimes we get to, sit in or ask questions when stuff like that's coming out so that we can, make content to have ready when things come out. And so I got to sit in on the call with the CMP where he's talking to the press, about this. And their big thing was that it's a first step. Okay. And that they understand, CMP Actual understands that it has to be a first step of many, including resourcing how to get leaders to do this, meaning the training and the time and the incentive where they have to change something about how you promote to actually take into account if you are doing these things. And so I think the concept is there. The idea that needs to happen is there. How to do that and the budget to do it and the, what levers we're pulling to do it. And I think so much of that comes like to make a decision about something like that in the Navy requires like 35 people to all be at the sitting table at the same time.
Yep.
And that is not an easy thing to do. That is so much of the trouble I've run into. It's like, oh, I have this idea, and it's like, cool, I need this person and this person and this person and this person and their aide and their aide's best friend's hairdresser's dog.
Right.
Like,
and then just like selling people on funding. I mean, I know like I've heard the MCPON talk like just a little bit about they're like lobbying Congress to like get them to pay for things, and it's like, and I mean, they can barely pass a budget and do all kinds of other functional government things. So it's like, I don't envy the role that they have to like sell those things, and it's like, and then there's only so many things you get to fit into that budget, and blah 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 blah. So like, I wish it was easier, but I understand even if we could get everybody all through CNO and SecNav to be like 110% on board with leadership development education in whatever model we think is best, then you got to like sell it to somebody that's going to cut us a check. And it's like, how do you know,
and I mean, you're talking about, and so I spent a bunch of time under NETC, so Navy Education and Training Command, and I just think people underestimate like how hard it is to make, what the heck is going on my computer? How hard it is to make curriculum or change curriculum for the Navy, and like the cost, the time you have to evaluate it. I mean, and some of that is frustrating just from a red tape perspective, where it's like, if we know better, we should be able to do better. It shouldn't
be as hard as it is, but also like, because there's certain levels. But then
sometimes it's like, well, maybe that rule is in place for a good reason.
For a reason, No, I get it, and I it's frustrating. I like the idea of like the Navy Community College thing being like, if we could employ enough like educational professionals, it's like, then maybe we can have a pipeline in place to just filter it all through them, because this is what they do, instead of like it being a bunch of active duty sailors that are only at a learning center for 3 years, or at NETC for 3 years on a shore duty, that are the ones responsible for like reviewing, approving, working, grouping, whatever, like doing everything from like AERRs for advancement exams to like the I forget the terminology for like the curriculum review stuff, but like I mean, I participated in one for the A school and the C schools, and it's like, I still haven't seen the change that we talked about, and this was like 7 years ago.
Oh, so, that makes me sad, because we run that curriculum through the Supply Corps schoolhouse now. So that makes me sad. But I mean, and maybe they just shot a lot of it. I don't know. It was a part of the Ready Relevant Learning stuff, and it's like the things they described in like, this is how we're going to roll it out, and it's going to be across the life cycle, and blah blah blah, and when do we need to do it? How do we need to do it? It's like, I never saw any of that happen. Like. It hurts my heart, but I wish there was a more efficient process, because it doesn't seem like it should be that hard. But you would you'd think and you'd hope, but I wish there was like an easier way, and I guess the podcast is it, to communicate, with junior sailors, that the lack of action is not necessarily a lack of your leadership trying or caring.
Right.
Because I think it feels that way. It feels that way to me sometimes, where it's like, I came up with this great idea, and I did all of this work, and I submitted it all to my XO, and my XO thought it was a great idea, and he got it in front of the chief of the Supply Corps, and at the time she thought it was a good idea, and we were all really excited, and then that was 3 years ago. And there's a new XO, and there's a new chief of the Supply Corps. I'm not even at the Supply Corps school anymore.
Right.
So that idea is dead. I mean, it's not. I sent all of my work to someone who is at the command now, and maybe they'll pick it back up. Maybe they won't. But
the transient nature of what we do, where we're constantly moving, and it's like that hinders our ability to do those things, because it takes so long to get stuff done that I'm going to be gone before it gets approved. So it's like.
And our to go back to the incentives, we're incentivized to think short term, because if I can't put it on my fit rep, if it's not done, I mean, if it's not done by the time I leave, if it's not completed by the 31st of January as a lieutenant, that was a lot of work for nothing.
Yeah.
Which isn't true. It's not nothing.
Right.
But it's like, but
yeah.
There's not a lot of incentive to follow up. There's not a lot of incentive to look out 3, 4, 5 years.
Right.
When you're doing that stuff. And that's something that I think we need to look at, because again, I think the long view, when you think about leadership and you think about investing in sailors and investing in leaders in the short term is really costly. Yeah. And because a lot of our incentive system is focused on the short term, the year or 2 year short term, it's really hard for any single leader to justify incurring the expense because they're not going to see the payoff.
Right.
So we need to shift to something that says, okay, but for real, we need to be looking at this longer horizon and understand that if we update the way we think about leadership, if we change the way we train for leadership, that will eventually fix the cultural problems and the mental health problems and the retention. And again, the whole long list, whatever, if you Google Reddit Navy and you just, the list of complaints. It all comes down to that. And if for your critique mentality, like I said, I think when you drill down into that why, it's a fundamental belief that so much of our leadership idea is founded on is that a person is a leader or they aren't. Yeah. Instead of leadership is a skill, a huge set of skills. Yeah. And we should both teach it and evaluate on it.
Yeah. And that's why I and it was partially that book that did it, is I started shifting my, like the way that I described the problem to just leadership and competence. It's like, it's not like this magic thing that people are born with or not. It's not this like unattainable brass ring, or whatever. I don't know. Like, I'm probably butchering these analogies, but like it's all it is just like anything else. It's an acquirable skill. And like I've seen in practice, and I'm sure you have as well, like wildly varying personalities that were extremely competent, highly effective leaders, like quiet, unassuming people that are not going to like just jump up on the table and scream or whatever. And their people would follow them through hell. And it's like, and then dudes like me who maybe fit more of like the traditional transformational leader mold, where like I have the deep booming voice and I'm willing to stand in front of the group of people and get passionate and like that, like, and I recognize those skills as something that resonated with people, which is why I acquired them. And that's something that like when I tell people, like, I mean, my voice is my voice, but like the willingness and ability to do those things are practiced over a period of time. Like, I hated standing in front of groups of people, and I didn't like confrontation. I didn't like passionately speaking and getting fired up and doing all those things and finding the ways to leverage people's motivators and all that kind of crap. It's like, those are all things I learned how to do. I didn't know how to do any of that. I was a horrific leader as an LPO. And then I figured it out slowly but surely.
Well, and to your point about the LPO thing, is I think that's something else that we set people up to have like a really, at least for me, a really rough couple of first few years, because we aren't teaching them as those technical skills. Because if I come in as a divo and I just think either I'm a leader or I'm not, sink or swim, I'm just I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna be me. And I'm bad at it, which spoiler alert for anyone from NMCB3 from 2014 to 2016, I was really bad at it. Sorry guys.
My bad.
My bad. And it's like, and then who suffers when you have like my E5s are the ones, man. Yeah. And my Chiefs a little bit, but like, they're like out there like trying to box me into shape.
Yeah, your Chiefs are the ones that are supposed to be teaching you these things, and that's the booby trap, is that they don't know how to do them either. Don't I said the crap part out loud. But like they don't, like, the leadership and competence exists there too, so that like we're saying, hey, train junior officers, but then you go to them and they don't know how to do it either, and they're just pretending. Like they're just like perpetuating that this is how we've always done it approach.
And I think that's where you get so there's like this, I don't know, belief, true or not, about like the friction a lot of times between especially first tours and their chief, where it's like the chief's going to think you know it all, or you're going to, whatever. I don't know.
Right.
But so much of it for me, my impression was like everybody was so busy trying to hide their insecurities, so busy trying to fake it till they make it, that we were all faking it with each other.
Yeah. 100%.
Which is one of the reasons I push so hard the idea of like transparency. You don't have to be like perfectly transparent. Not everyone needs to know everything about my life all the time. Yeah. But if I can admit when I've made mistakes, or I can admit when I don't know something, and give permission to other people to admit when they make mistakes and when they don't know something, and we were all just a little more honest about that.
That was rule number one for me. Like, is I would rather you like ask a stupid question than make a stupid mistake. And if you do make a mistake, you tell me immediately, and that it's going to go way better if you tell me immediately. Cause like the way that I always like, one of the first like leadership revelations for me was like the Jocko Willink book, Extreme Ownership. Like, and I know a lot of people nowadays kind of roll their eyes at him cause he's a little, you know, like he's a guy that like, he's just being himself, but it's a bit much for some people. But that book is incredible. And the idea of it's always me, like it's always my fault if something goes wrong. And that's what I would tell my people. Like, like there's some personal responsibility sometimes. Like if you get a DUI, like it's my fault that I wasn't clairvoyant and that I'm not perfect as a leader. But like also like most of this is just a personal responsibility thing, because it's not like I never had that conversation with you. It's not like I never told you could call me anytime, day or night. It's not like Uber doesn't exist. So like, and we've had all those conversations about making the right decision and how to do that and blah, blah, blah. But whenever something would go wrong, like with work stuff, like they screwed something up, like the inventory validity is horrific or the meal's a dumpster fire. It's like, I clearly failed to train you. So we're going to fix this. Here's what, you know what I mean? Like, and I always perfect at it? No, but it was like, they always brought problems to me and they were always willing to provide feedback because I opened it up for that. Like anytime I was going to do something, change something, create a policy, whatever, it was always like how does this affect you, and like what feedback do you have for me, because they're the ones that have to go do the thing and I'm just like the trainer and supervisor and QA, and it's like I'm your safety net and I want to be your safety net, so you got to bring these things to me. But yeah, that's like for me that's like the prime directive, like you gotta tell me things. Like you have to.
One of the things I think it's like so important is most of the time, most issues you can drill down to either a knowledge problem or a resource problem. And so it's like, okay, so if inventory validity is bad, is it because, and sorry for the people who are not supply types, it means that the stuff we think we have in the storeroom isn't in the storeroom, or there's too much of it, or it's the wrong stuff. It's the reason that you aren't getting whatever was supposed to be on the menu today. And so it's either a knowledge problem, right? Which is like my sailor doesn't understand how to do inventories, isn't keeping, you know, like doesn't understand how to organize it. There's something I haven't provided them from a knowledge standpoint, or there's something I haven't provided them from a resource standpoint. Are they so tasked out right now that they are counting back 10 cans and then multiplying by 4 cans and just calling them all green beans instead of doing what they're supposed to do and pull them all out, which is annoying and takes forever. But if they're given the right resources and the right motivation, they will do that. Like it's their job. It's boring. I've been there. I've had to count those cans many times. It's awful.
You're required to be there.
I know.
I don't know if that's what the book still says, but it used to.
It is. Oh, it is. I can tell you a story about how definitely involved in inventories I was. But and so when I talk to people about those kinds of problems, even discipline problems, I always try to find out if it's one of those two things, because one of my big pet peeves is like with the counseling chits, where it's like the answer is always training. It's always like so-and-so is late to work. They're going to provide training. But a lot of times it's not. And like you're saying, like a knowledge problem, training might be the solution.
But then,
but if it's a resource problem, training's not the solution at all.
Right.
Which is
and
like,
also,
if they're always late to work because daycare doesn't open until 7:30, then them training people on how to be on time to work is not going, you haven't gotten down to the why.
Well, you said something that in my mind was like the missing piece of knowledge or resource. And I guess you could, I don't know which one you would say it falls under, probably resources, but the motivation part, you said resources and motivation. And I was like, for me, that was a big component of it. Cause I was never like, I always trained and qualified hard. Like my guys were always, I say guys, I had one female sailor, but she was TAD. I would train and qualify. There was never a lack of level of knowledge. There was never a lack for supervision. But and I did everything I could, because that was like my definition of what my job is to give them everything they need to do their job, whether it's training or resources. Right. But then there's that you'd call it like the gray area soft skills leadership stuff of like, I need to meet their needs so that when I put them in there and they have the knowledge and resources to do the inventory, for instance, that they're motivated to pull every can out, because they know that if there's an inventory validity issue, I'm going to be not thrilled about that, because I invested so much time and effort into like meeting their knowledge and resources needs. It's like, I also need to push that motivator button so that they're motivated to do it correctly, even when I'm not in the room. You know, like if they're doing breakouts and I'm not babysitting them, which I won't be, that they're very diligent about, I pull it out, I look at the food item code on top, I make sure that, okay, I'm issuing 3, I'm returning 2, not used as 1, whatever. Unit of issue. Yep.
All the good boring stuff that makes everything work.
It's like they need all that, but they also need to be properly motivated, which for me is always, I just default to the hierarchy of needs stuff. It's like, I need to be meeting all of their needs. And some of that can get into because you mentioned the intrusive leadership stuff, and I hate that term, but also like, I understand that. I think while it's not probably happening at Amazon, right? Like in the military, it's a little different because of what we do, and we become so close that I have a really deep investment in these people as people. Like they're very important to me. I call them my kids because I feel like they're my children. Like that's just the attachment I have to these people. And so like, if there's something going on in their life, like that is causing work to suffer, I want to try to help them meet whatever need they have so that they're fully focused on whatever they need to be doing while it's time to be doing it. Like,
and I would consider that a resource problem.
Okay.
That's where I would file that, where it's like, okay, so if you, there was something that recently came up. I don't know what your relationship is with the Permission to Speak Freely podcast, but it came up on Reddit. Those are my
homies.
Okay, so they had the whole.
Are they bad?
No.
Okay, I'm like, Dama, what happened?
No, they pulled something off of. They pulled something off of Reddit that was like hey, my daughter was sick all night. I was up all night with her.
I saw a video clip.
Yeah, that whole thing. Yeah, and so that's a resource thing to me, because now you have a sailor who can't do their job because of a couple of things that might have gone wrong in the resource column, from childcare, healthcare access, whatever. And it's a resource problem because apparently I don't know the context of what was going on there, but the chief's response was, we are so resource constrained that you still have to come in. Which I've been very vocal about. Like, if the command is going to fall apart because a sailor can't come in for one day, you've made like other resource allocation problems.
Well, and I understand, like nowadays, I would say, like current events, it's like retention and recruiting being what it is. I could understand there being such like human resource problems that, oh my God, I have to have you. But at the same time, it's like, you don't get to not meet those resource needs of those people. Like you're saying, like it's my child, man. Like I can't.
Like someone had to hold my kid while she threw up.
I can't not take care of this.
To counterpoint and go back to the long view thing. Okay, so you got that sailor into work today when you needed an extra watch standard today. You think
I'm
that
not saying
sailor's
it's
gonna
the answer
re-enlist?
that she or he
Like,
should have come in, but
I
I'm just saying
want
I
to
understand
know-
the Chiefs
I-
extremists
I
too.
get it.
But it's not the right.
Absolutely.
It's never the right answer to say you have to come in anyway, because of what you're about to say about like then the future becomes this is unsustainable, and then they're not there.
They don't
Then it's an
stay,
unplanned loss.
and then-
Yeah.
Or it's not an unplanned loss. They just choose not to re-enlist when the time comes because they're forever a little bit bitter about that one day that they had to come to work.
Vote with their feet. Yeah.
And now we're short someone who was trained and motivated and wanted to be there and experienced, but they're leaving because they had this bad experience. And so it's that short-term versus long-term pull.
Yeah.
And again, I think a lot of the deck plate leadership ends up in the crosshairs of that, where they're under-resourced. But if they don't protect the resources we have, and by resources I mean people, then we're going to keep being under-resourced, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
And
100%.
And then all of that gets shoved onto these leaders who have very little formal training in like, how should I flex? How should I communicate that?
They very rarely make the correct choice when confronted with that decision point for that exact reason. Is they've never, they're worried about putting out the fire instead of finding out why the thing's on fire in the first place, and then like addressing that so that it's not an issue in the future. Yeah.
Which is, and in firefighting, maybe that's the right thing to do, but then you have a piece of damaged equipment. That's wrong. That sounds bad. It sounds like people are equipment, which they're not. But the metaphor falls apart at some point. But no, I think, and that's where for me, it's like, I think a lot of good people who could and should be good leaders end up in a bind where it's like, you have to make this decision right now.
Yeah.
And you haven't been given the chance to learn and exercise all the different tools you might use to make that decision. So you just make the decision that your mentor would have made, because that's the only person who's taught you how to make decisions. And then we just end up making the same decisions for like 80 years in a row.
Yep.
Instead of getting better. And I don't know. That's for me, that's, and you talked about the motivation piece. And I think again, going like, that's so much of the hard part is I'm not big into the intrusive leadership thing beyond what I need to make sure my sailors' needs are met to get to work.
Yep.
And that they're not like, moonlighting as drug dealers or something.
Yeah.
That definitely hasn't happened to me. I didn't have to go to that captain's bath. Man.
I had a drug ring on one of my boats. Yeah, it was good times.
Oh, we had one at one of my bases.
Yeah, I got to go out.
Of my bases.
I got to go out on a transfer vessel, escort like a dozen sailors back that were all because NCIS needed to talk to them. Like, good times. Yeah, it was a mess.
We had base-wide urinalysis at Kings Bay while I was there. Like within 24 hours, everyone associated with Kings Bay had to provide a urinalysis sample.
Good grief.
Good times. That wasn't my sailor. That wasn't on me.
Poor UPCs. Jesus.
I know, right? But going way back, the motivation part's hard because you have to know what makes each of your sailors motivated, and it is something different for everyone.
Yep.
Going like way back to the sailors who wanted to cross rate. Knowing what actually interests them.
Did I just get low-key called old? I think that just happened.
No, just like, I don't know, however long ago in the conversation.
Way back.
Not that, if they joined and maybe they like the Jimmy Carter, maybe they like, whatever, but maybe they don't like making lasagna. Maybe they're not really into making, bread from scratch 3 times a week. Which rude, because bread from scratch is delicious. Go subs.
Yeah.
If you don't know what motivates them and you just keep trying to press the same levers, be it, money
because
with the bonuses,
my leadership style,
or time off, because like, I feel like those were like the 3 things that I got taught as a JO was like money. So get them advanced or get them re-enlisted for the bonuses. Thanking them. That's a big lever. Get the CO to thank them on the 1MC. Which I'm not devaluing. That can be motivating. It just needs to be one of the tools, right? And time off. And like, again, a great tool not the same tool for everybody though.
Right.
And there's a lot of other things where it's like access to education, right? Or understanding that they have a certain childcare need, and hey, if you'll show up and be motivated to do this and this and this, we'll help you meet this need, right? We'll help you get resourced for this other thing. I think people really underestimate that, and how if you don't even have to go the full mile. You can go like just a little extra step. Yeah. And people will be so grateful that you are leading them and not just leading Petty Officer X.
There are so many instances that I've had sailors relay an experience to me that like they had with me, like that I did something, said something, helped them with a thing, whatever. I don't even remember it happening. And it like, but it left such a mark on them that they relay like, man, I just thank you so much for that time that you did this thing and blah. I can't even tell you how much it meant to me. And I'm like, huh? Like it in my mind, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a thing I did in the like, and it felt normal to me. And I didn't feel like I went super far with it. I don't feel like I went above and beyond with it. I tell a bunch of stories like that all the time. And it's super interesting to see and hear the things that like meant something to them or left a mark on them or was important to them. Because like, it wouldn't have been what I thought was important. Like there's times I probably went like more above and beyond or put more effort and time into a thing. And that I thought it was the most important thing, or I thought it was the thing that would impact them the most. But then it's little things that usually are the one, like they remember me just caring enough to do some really simple thing or say some really simple thing or whatever. And yeah, it's like, it's so important because those are the things that keep people around. Like those little moments are the things that are going to get people to re-enlist, not a re-enlistment bonus, you know, like the meeting those needs and yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's,
I think 2 hours, a good time to wrap up.
Look at that. Right on the money. There's like the nice almost, like trail off. Good officer knows when to exit. Bye.
Hell yeah.
So the division invites you out for beers. You have one beer and then you sneak out the back.
Yeah, and
see you guys later.
Because like, I don't want to be around for what happens next.
Look, I'm cool. I showed up. I drank the IPA. I'll see you guys on Monday. Bye.
I didn't even drink at holiday parties. I was just like, nope, not going to be that guy. I'm like, I'll carry one of you out of here and take you home, like but I'm not.
I need my emotional support. My emotional support beverage to interact with that many people.
That's funny. Yeah. And I tell my wife too, I'm like, we got to leave before people start. As soon as I see people start to get sloppy, we're leaving. Like, I'm just like, I'm not going to be part of this like Instagram reel that goes viral because there's a brawl in the lobby. Like, I'm out.
I do. Oh man. Was that Guam?
Remember, it was a carrier. I don't know. It was some carrier did it too. Some boo of somebody saw somebody with somebody else and got upset.
Oh, not the boat
big
boo.
Fight and ball gowns and stuff. I'm like,
excellent. Yeah, I gotta be out. I don't want to be part of the investigation. I want the investigator to be like, "Where were you?" I'm gonna be like, "In my bunny slippers at home."
Yeah, exactly. I got receipts.
Right.
Thank you so much for doing this. Tell people real quick where they can find you on all the social media things.
Yeah.
And I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit. I'm at milmama _on the run. So MILMAMA _ on the run.
And that's the handle.
You're a really big runner, but again, you get stuck with your things.
Yeah.
I guess I'm still a runner since I'm running a marathon this year. But and
nice.
Yeah, come hang out. This is exactly the kind of content I share, just in 6-second clips and really long captions.
Read the captions. That's what I did.
I mean, I did a poll a while back where I was like, do people want more information in the videos, or you just like want the funny video and then people can read the caption if they want? And that was like the overwhelming winner. So I was like,
okay,
y'all do you. I do every once in a while. I
would have guessed the total opposite. So like,
same. I was hoping for the opposite because I was like, oh, I could stop lip syncing to weird 90s music, but here we are. The
internet's gonna internet.
And it's forever, so I can't wait for my kids to find my 20-year-old Instagram. posts
I
and
didn't
be
even
like,
think about
Mom,
that.
you're
What
so
were
weird.
you doing? Yeah.
Look, they're going to be
Now
in
that it'll
therapy
be
for something. It might as well be.
Yeah.
Might as well be that.
because my mom was a TikTok influencer.
Oh, I hate that word so much. Oh, I hate that word so much. Yeah. Please don't. Please do not make that anything in the show notes or the title. Oh gosh, I'll cry.
The influencer.
No.
No.
That's why we're called the Navy Digital Ambassadors, because they wanted to call us the Navy
I like it.
Digital Influencers or something, and I was like, I will not
refuse.
sign up for that program.
Hard no.
Well, yeah. No, thank you so much for having me. I hope you were serious about reviewing my thesis, because I'm going to email it 100%. To you and be like,
send it my way.
I mean,
I don't know if I'm qualified to do it, but I'll do it.
A good officer knows when to ask a chief. So
yeah, sign me up.
Preview this for me.
If I'm good at anything in this world, it's like wordsmithing. I can English pretty well. So yeah.
All right, perfect. We'll just make you a co-author. It'll be great. And good luck with your psychology degree.
Thanks.
Good times. That was what my first degree was in. So it's always a trip.
Someday.
Yeah.
All right. I hope y'all enjoyed that. I clearly had a great time. It was funny going in. For some reason, I didn't even know she was a submarine chop. Like I knew she was a supply officer. I just didn't realize she was a submariner too, which is even cooler. So that was fun. But yeah, really, really fun conversation. Really interesting. I'm looking forward to learning more about the Navy Digital Ambassador stuff. I mean, I was half kidding when I was like I don't, like, why didn't they contact me? Like, I think I know why, but also like, it's fine. But it's cool that program even exists. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that. And I have a feeling I'm going to want to talk more about that too, especially assuming they expand it and it becomes more influential, like, cause it's about time the Navy started exploring and leveraging that space. So I thought it was really cool when she explained to me that that's a real thing, like a program that the Navy's getting behind, finally. And I hope it goes places and does great things. I mean, it seems to already be in a way, but yeah, I'm hoping it expands and you see a lot more of that kind of stuff, because that's where sailors are, and that's where you're going to reach them. So very cool. As always, if you need anything from us, hit us up. Don't Give Up the Ship Podcast at gmail.com. You can Facebook message us, Don't Give Up the Ship Podcast, or you can DM us on Instagram, Reddit, or Discord at dgutspodcast. If you want to support us, you can go to dgutspodcast.com. There's a donate button on the website, or you can click that shop button. It'll take you to Don't Give Up the Ship apparel. Get yourself some Naval Pride and Heritage gear you'll actually wear in public. We got stickers, coins, all kinds of fun stuff. Very proud of that. And then probably the best way, patreon.com/dgutspodcast. If you can and you're willing, pick a tier that fits you best. There's a lot of cool benefits to doing it, and become a patron, and that helps us tremendously. Pay all these bills and subscription fees and expand the platform. So if you can support us in that way, great. If you can't spare the cash, I understand, times are tough. Just like, share, subscribe, review us on all the platforms for all the things. Go to YouTube and subscribe and follow us. Share the video content, tag your friends, share the podcast links, all that kind of stuff. It all helps. It gets the word out, spreads the message, and supports the platform. So we really appreciate that as well. And that's it. That's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and don't give up the ship. Hey, shout out to our level 5 patrons, Victoria Livingood and William McIver. We really appreciate you. All our other patrons, you're enabling us to do this thing, and your support means everything. Thank you. Please hit the like button, drop a comment down below on what you thought, and subscribe to the channel.